Hi. So we're working in Big Ideas and we're working on our Chapter 2 practice test. And our first question is 1/10 times 3/11. And the great thing about this is it's just so easy. We just do 1 times 3 is 3. And then whenever we're multiplying by 10, we just add a 0. So we put 110 and that is our answer. So we're on exercise number 2, and it says without finding the product, complete the following statement using less than, greater than, or equal to. Well, I have 4/3 over here on this side, and then I have 7/6 times 4/3. Well, whenever we have a number, if we would take a whole number, say it was 6/6, and that was number 1, we would be equal to 4/3. But this number right here, the 7/6, says that it's greater than one whole number. So we know that this number is going to be a little bit slightly bigger. So it's going to be 4/3 is going to be a little bit less than our product of the other two multiplied together. So we're going to do 4/3 is less than the product of these two numbers. Okay, so now we have and this is our reasoning. It's because the 7/6 is greater than 1. And 4/3 is greater than, so 7/6 times 4/3 is going to be greater than just 4/3. And our answer is right there. Okay? Because 6/6 would be equal to 1. So 7/6 would be greater than 1. All right. Find the product. Write the answer in the simplest form. So hopefully at home you're doing this with me. You're not just copying my answers. But the first thing you have to do is when you're working with math is you have to look at the fractions. When you're working with fractions, you have to make them all like numbers. You cannot just randomly pick. So the first thing I have to do is I have to multiply my 2 times my 7, which is 14, plus my 2 at the top is going to give me 16 sevenths. And now I'm going to multiply that by 5/8. And then I'm going to take my 4 times 10 is 40, and then my 1 on the top is going to give me 41/10. Now, what I have to do is look at this and see how can I reduce this. Well, I look at my 16 and my 8, and I can make this, both can be divided by 8, and that's going to go into 8 twice, and that's 8 is going to go into 8 once. And then I could go again with my 5. My 5 can be divided by 5 once, and my 5 can be divided by this twice, and now I've got something that's reasonably simple. Oh, I still got a 2 here and a 1, a 2 here and a 1. So now I have my answer is 41 sevenths, and that's not going to be simple. So I need to simplify it. So I need to go 7 goes into 41. It's going to go how many times? 5 times, which would give me 35, because 5 times 7 is 35. And what's left over is going to be 6/7. So my answer to this problem would be 5 and 6/7. We're matching our reciprocals. Reciprocal is, in fraction terms, it just means that I flip the number over. So when I typically look at 9, it's a whole number. So I would have a 9 on top and a 1 underneath. But when I make it as a reciprocal, I'm going to flip it. So instead of being 9/1, it would be 1/9. Now, when I have 9/7, the reciprocal, when I flip it, would be the 7 would now magically move to the top and the 9 would move to the bottom. So we'd now have 7/9. I want you to do the other two on your own. So for problem number 5, we have our 5/8 and we're dividing it by 3/4. So we kind of keep, change, flip, simplify. So we keep our 5/8, we change our division to a multiplication, and we flip our 3/4 into 4/3. So when I do this, I now have 4 divided by 4 goes once, and 8 divided by 4 goes twice. So that's my simplify piece. And now I'm just going to multiply it out. 5 times 1 is 5, and 2 times 3 is going to give us 6. So we're looking at number 6, and I have 1 divided by 9/10 plus 1/2. So the first thing I need to know is that I have to do something with my parentheses. So I'm going to bring down my 1 divided by, and I'm going to work on the parentheses. I have 9/10. Well, I can't do anything with that 2 because 2 does not and 10 are not the same pieces. So I have to change my 2 and I have to get it to some number that it's going to equal 10 on the bottom. And the number that I can multiply is 5. So 2 times 5 is going to give me 10. Now I have to keep my number the same, so I have to do the same thing to the top number or my numerator, and 1 times 5 is going to give me 10. So now I have 1 divided by 9 plus 5 is 14 over 10. So now 14 over 10, and I'm going to clear this out so you guys can see it easier. 1 divided by 14 over 10. And so we do our keep, change, flip, simplify. 1 times 10 over 14 equals 10 over 14. And then we just simplify it. And both of these can be divided by 2, and it's going to give us 5/7. You got to love problem 7. Problem 7 says 5 2/3 divided by some number equals 1. Well, anytime you end up with the answer was 1, it's dividing the same exact number. So you have 5 2/3 divided by 5 2/3, and it equals to 1. Okay, so we have a division, but first we have to change our mixed number into an improper fraction. So 3 times 4 is going to give us 12, 13, 14, 15. So we have 15/4. We're going to change that into a multiplication, and we're going to flip the 3/4 into its reciprocal, which will be 4 over 3. Now, before I do anything, I'll do my favorite part, which is simplify. And I take my 3 and I divide it by 3, and it's 1. And 15 divided by 3 is going to give me 5. 4 divided by 4 is going to give me 1. 4 divided by 4 is going to give me 1. And 5 times 1 is 5. And you are done. Okay, so now we're doing, still on exercise 8, sorry about that. Okay, so the brackets on the top show that the model represents the number. Well, here's 1, 2, 3, and 3/4. The brackets on the bottom show that the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are all, if you look right here, they're all divided by 3/4, because here's our 3/4, and it goes in exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 times. Exercise 9 you can totally do. All you have to do is line up your decimal points. You're going to put your 9 underneath your 2 point, and then 1 goes underneath your other 9, and the 8 goes on top, and the 3 goes underneath. You're going to add those together, and you will come out with the right answer. Exercise 10 is one of those other easy ones. What I would do is I would take it 2 numbers at a time, and the easier 2 numbers would be these 2 numbers, the 21 and the 10. I would not start over here. The 8 has too many. I would start with these 2 numbers, subtract the 10 from the 21, and then take whatever's left and take that away from the 35. And it's going to make your life a lot easier. Number 11 is also pretty easy. Just go ahead and take that number and multiply it by the second number, and then count your decimals and put them in place. So you're going to need 3 decimals at the end of that problem. So number 12, I'm just going to kind of give it to you. Let's just look at it for a second. If we took these numbers and they're trying to find the pattern, each number is 0.5 would be half the time. So it would be 4, it would go down to 2. Well, that's not true. Each number is 1.5 times. Well, 4 plus half of it would be 2. Okay, that's good. 6 plus half of 6, 6 plus 3 would be 9. Okay, so pretty good. And then 9 plus 4.5 would be 13.5. So that is true. Each number is 2/3 of the next number. Well, let's take a look at our 6. If we have the number 6, if we take the number 6 and we divide it by 2/3, which means we're going to keep, change, and flip, it will end up being as the number 4. So yeah, that'll work. And each number is 3/2 of the previous number. Well, that's true too. So those are your answers. Then they get a little tricky and they say, what are the next 3 numbers? So you have to take the 13.5 and you have to multiply it by 1.5. And that is going to give you 20.25. And just, okay, so we want to have everything as the same value, which means it's like that problem that we did before where you have to check your decimals. How many decimal places do you have here? So in this one right here, we have 2 answers that have 0.8 and 8. And then we have two answers that have the point 0.0162 and 16.162. So we need to have the same places over from the decimal. So we have here, we have 1, 2, 3. One, two, three, four. Huh. Yeah, because it stumped me a little because they're actually all in the same order. So your work is done. They're already in the right order. Okay. Okay, so we're going to do division with a decimal. And basically we need to move this over 3 places. So we're going to need to move this over 3 places. 1, 2, and we throw 0 up in here and we put our decimal right there. So now we're doing 4 into, and here's our decimal. This is no longer our decimal. 4 goes into 7 one time, and that equals 7 take away 4 is going to give us 3, and we have 34. 4 goes into 34 8 times, which gives us 32 with a remainder of 2. We bring down our 0, and 4 goes evenly into 20 5 times. And there is our. Okay, so they're asking us for the length of a rectangle. We know area is going to equal the 3/5, and our width in this problem is 2/5. So area equals length times width. Area in this problem is length, which we don't know, times the 2/5. We have to divide it because here we're multiplying it. Well, we have 2 of the numbers, but we don't have the third number. So we're going to divide the whole area by the one side that we know, or the 2 sides that we know. So we're going to do 3/5 divided by 2/5. Well, let's do our keep, change, flip, and I'm going to get rid of all of this. Okay, and here we have our 3/5, and we're going to change it to a multiplication problem. We're going to flip this, and then my favorite part, which is simplify. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes in there, and we end up with 3/2, and we know that when we change this back into a mixed number, it's going to be 1 1/2. So the missing piece was 1 1/2. Now they want to know is how many times bigger is the length than the width. So we take our 1 1/2, we divide it by 2/5, and we flip our 3 or 1 1/2, and we change it into 3/2. We make this into a multiplication problem, and we take our 2/5 and we change it into 5/2, which equals 15/4. When we divide 15/4, we end up with 3 3/4 times bigger.